Thank you for having me. This was, as mentioned, this is a highly in demand these days with the very special circumstances we have. I've got to tell you that this session is actually something that I was supposed to deliver at Ignite in Amsterdam, Madrid, and Stockholm. So it's fresh, it's fairly up to date, and I have had to hide a couple of slides the past 2 weeks because the pace of how fast Microsoft updates things makes some of the slides and some of the information irrelevant. This is a two-part session. I'll go through some heavily IT pro related things in the beginning on how to set it up. And then I'll discuss more of the end user, how we can guide our end users to actually understand the technology. And with that, I'll start the presentation, which is how to succeed with Microsoft Teams calling and meetings and how to prepare for it as well. I'm an Office Apps and Services MVP. I work for a company in Norway that's called Innofacto. And if you have any questions before or after later today, tomorrow, next week, you can always find me at Twitter at Lavedo. And there you have it. So the things that we are going to go through today are basically the phone system, the calling plans, the direct routing, the meeting lifecycle, the meeting experience, guest experience, licenses, interrupt. How do we prepare our users in the environment they're in, the devices, and the network, and so on. So it's a kind of 10 bullet points that I'm going through. I'm not sure I'll have time for the 11th one, which is work like a pro. I'll try to adjust because there are some new tips right there. And when I think about it, I promised you video, but I don't think I turned my video on, did I? Just give me 2 seconds here. There we are. And let me just show off by selecting this one. You didn't see that, did you? That's coming very soon. Right. And as you see, there's the background. The background that you have in the picture is actually my office. So I tell my boss that I'm in my office all the time while I'm at the beach or somewhere else working. So let's get straight to it. The Teams logical architecture is pretty huge and overwhelming. And I just want to put an emphasis that I'm talking about the 2 bullet points down here. These are the meetings and calling. It's just a small part. I'm not going to talk about OneDrive, how the contacts are stored and everything else, because there's simply not enough time for that. So the phone system is called phone systems now. It has had cloud PBX, and different names, but Microsoft calls it phone system. And it's actually the license that allows you to enable certain services that are very similar to good old classic PBX. It's in the Office 365, and you have to have Microsoft Teams to utilize the services. It has PBX capabilities. You assign numbers to users and to services, and you can have auto-attendant call queues and voicemail, and they are continuously developing new services. The enterprise voice for the cloud, as I said, is built upon this phone system, but with the phone system alone, you will not get anywhere because the phone system is just the capability. You need to understand that in order to get somewhere with your phone system, you need either calling plans in the countries where the calling plans are available, or you need direct routing, which is most relevant for us in the Nordics, in Denmark, Norway, and Sweden, where you bring your own trunk to it. And I'm going to go through just the setup. I don't know if you have any customers or if you have regions where you need this, but I'm going to go through the calling plans and how to set it up in Office 365 really quick soon. And then I'll dive a bit more into the direct routing, if that is fine with you. So let's see if I can switch screens here. I'm sitting on my laptop, so I have to switch a couple of windows before I do things. Let's see. Sorry for the inconvenience, but that's how it is when we're not sitting at our desk anymore. So I'm going to share my entire desktop for this session. So here we have in the, here we have the modern Teams portal, and it's timed out. Let's try that again. Demo ghosts of old are coming to haunt us. Failed to authenticate. Okay, let's just, sorry for that. I was actually ready here, but do that again. Did you see my screen, right?
Yes, we do.
So what I wanted to show you is that in the admin Teams portal, the demo gods are with me. There is this voice application on the left side, and before you actually had to switch to the classic Skype for Business, legacy Skype for Business in order to get your direct numbers and everything. Now you can have it all right here. So I'll start by having a look at phone numbers. In my portal, I probably don't have any. Yeah, I have 5 phone numbers that I required earlier, and it's really simple to add them. You just click the add number. As long as you have licenses in Office 365, you are eligible to get those phone numbers. And I'll just go, and for the purpose of it, I'll select United States. And the reason why I'm selecting United States is because my location is set up there. Then you can decide whether or not you want a user subscriber, you want a conference number, if you want a call queue number, and anything. And for this purpose, I'm going to have just set up a call queue. I'm going to set up an auto attendant. And then I am going to search for I'm going to search for Bellevue, where I have my main office, of course, right there. And then I need, it doesn't have area code available. Okay, maybe I just, by the 5 numbers I have, I've actually gone over those numbers for that area. But this is it. This is what you fill out. You click next, and that, and by the end of that, the order field is required. Order name, outer attendant, and my test queue. And then you can click next. You shouldn't get the errors that I get with the licenses. Okay. And once you've done that, I'm going to hide this menu here. I'm going to click cancel right here. And once you've gone through that process, it takes a couple of minutes, and you'll have the numbers right here. Now, in order to assign a number, it's quite easy. You just select the user, select the number, and you can click edit. And you can assign it to a person. I can assign it to, let's say, Megan. Oh. Maybe she didn't have the licenses. This is why you should check for licenses before assigning numbers. I'm sorry for that. Let's go check for the licenses already. I was thrown off by the authentication error. And that portal office off, we're going to do for admin. Anyone else been thrown off by all the URLs we have to remember? Find a user. I'm going to go for the active users. I'm going to be quick here and find see if we can find Megan here. Okay. I'm going to check for licenses. When we take a look at her licenses, we'll see that she probably doesn't have the domestic calling plan, which is why I couldn't find her in the search field. Save changes. Like this, and go back out. I could do a refresh on this page. There's phone numbers and then find the number I wanted to assign to Megan. This, of course, takes a couple of minutes. And it could be an error. I don't know if you noticed, but there's an error message in Teams portal right now that there are certain issues with the portal. So I'm sorry for not being able to complete this, but by searching now, you should be able to see Megan and add her here. Okay, and that's all there is to an end user and phone numbers in the calling plan. It's not very hard, but it's a bit more difficult for the rest of us who needs to use direct routing. Now, direct routing is your own trunk, take it to the cloud, which then you need to make sure that you have a PSTN provider and some kind of connectivity voice trunk on your own site, and that can be your existing PBX, or it could be a SIP trunk, or it could be ISDN or whatever. As long as you have this session border controller that is certified and configured correctly, connected to the internet. And that is, with that, you own your own phone ranges, you manage your own phone ranges, you can freely distribute numbers among the users. You can also, with the most session board controllers, connect to third-party voice apps that you have on premises. It's a very versatile and flexible solution. There are two ways of deploying session border controllers, and that is your own session border controller, which you can buy. Most vendors have virtual appliances, so they come at very low cost. If you have hosting capabilities yourself, they come as hardware. If you want to buy them, they tend to be a bit more expensive, but there are also a lot of partners out there who do a hosted SBC for you. And that means that they provide all the hardware and the trunks, and all you have to do is configure your tenants to connect to that hosted session border controller. There is no certification program like there used to be for Link Hoster Pack and so for hosting a session border controller. So you have to rely on the partner using certified equipment and ask them that if they do provide that service for you. The session border controllers, as I said already, they have third-party connections. You can probably, some of them, you can have your own hardware, your own phone systems connected to them. The session border controllers that are available today, they have a certification process and they're validated. And if you follow their documentation to the point, I've never seen a problem with any session border controllers. most problems I've run into when I'm in the field are people who deploy the session border controller, but they skipped a couple of pages in the how-to guide, or they didn't fully understand what that meant and how they have to implement it. So get help from somebody who actually knows that session border controller bit if you're not familiar with it. The validated partners that I tend to recommend are AudioCodes, Ribbon, and ThinkTel, but there's always an updated list of SBCs that you can find at the AKMS DR SBC link here. So when you set up a session border controller and you want phone calls to flow through that to your cloud, there is a simple configuration you can do. You create your gateway, first of all. Then you create a usage, which is simply a placeholder for where you're going to have your numbers and your routes. Then you create the route, which you see that you can put into that usage. And in the end, you create a policy where you have the usage and the route, and you assign that to users. I'm going a bit fast through this because I'm going to show you that in a demo in just 2 minutes. You can also have a more advanced configuration. Let's say you want some kind of load balancing mechanism. You have more than one site. You can build a rather advanced setup of session border controller sets, routes, usages, and make sure that your phone call will always go out if one site or another goes down. I'm not going to look into that in the demo because we simply don't have time for an advanced configuration, but we are going to go ahead and do a simple demonstration. Again, probably the sign up has failed by now, so I'm going to do a new sign up. Since I'm sharing my screen, you probably, hopefully you see my little setup here. I'm going to blow up the text so it's easier to see. And I am going to just do that a little bit smaller. So first of all, we need to import the Skype online connector still, and we need to create a session to that to the tenant that we're going to work with. So I'm going to do that. And I am going to, this is a draw side of having just one screen right now. Sorry about that. I'm going to do for the MVP. What would I do without KeyPass? This. So I'm not paying attention to the chat right now, just so that you know it. You are more than welcome to come off mute if you have relevant questions to this part of the demo, and there will be time at the end to actually go through those questions later. But yeah, the secondary logon, of course. The reason why I'm having a secondary logon is because I'm logging on to two services. I'm logging on to the MS, the Active Directory, and I'm logging on to the Skype connector itself. We can get through this now. Yep. Okay, let me just do a order like this. Now, I have a code snippet here that connects to the Azure AD, and I'll grab all my users. And after I've done that, I'm going to go through the list and see which one of them actually has the EV license assigned. I'm going to share this code with you later because it's I find it very relevant when I'm doing the job. And here we see these are the users who actually have the license assigned. You can see Megan that I just assigned it to, and the license has been successfully assigned. Then next to the sauce, screen is a bit small, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new gateway. I'm going to set it up. It needs to be a name, and the name needs to be within the domain space of the tenant. Normally, this would be your vanity domain, but this is a demo environment, so I'm using the on Microsoft.com domain. If your domain would be mydomain.com, you should probably have SBC mydomain.com. The most important part of this is that the name that you use here is the name that you should assign to the actual session border controller and the certificate that you install on that session border controller. I'm setting a single port, and I'm setting the max concurrent sessions, which should align with the number of licenses you have for your session border controller. And I'm setting it enabled to true. Here we see that it's been added with the name. There's no translation rules, and so that's more for advanced calling scenarios, but it has the right signaling port. You can discuss whether or not you want the forwarding call history to be on or off, the concurrent session, if there's media bypass or not. These are all advanced configurations that I don't have time to go through right now. And then there's the next line I use, which is because you want calls to go through, you do want to use that forward call history in forward pi. And if you look into the documentation, almost all session border controllers advise you to put that on for simplicity. Okay. Now let's see if I have any route in this tenants. I don't think I do, but oh yeah, I have a local route that is a default one, but that's okay. So now I am going to create what I said, it's a online usage. Let's say you have multiple countries or multiple sites with different dialing restrictions or criterias. You probably want to say that, hey, if you dial Norwegian numbers, you will have that in the Norwegian usage. And if you have international numbers like this one, you'll have that in the international usage. And next, I'm creating a route that says any number should be the +47, right? Which is the Norwegian extension. Is it 45 in Denmark, I think? 45, yeah. And I'm gonna add the gateway to it, and I'm gonna add the usage Norway, so I know that any user who get this in Norway will get the right number. Let's just run that one. And then I have a similar line for international numbers, which just accepts anything. And then I'm creating a routing policy and in that routing policy, I have the Norwegian usage and the international usage. And what this does is when a user gets this policy, it can call both Norwegian and international numbers. In some scenarios, you want to restrict users from dialing international numbers, so you'll create two routing policies, one for those who can only dial national numbers, and then you'll create another policy for those who can dial national and international numbers. Okay, so let's take a look at Megan. right here, enterprise voice enabled is what I want to set. I want to set a host mail number, and I'm using the on-prem line URI number, which is the local number. Now, the number that you use here is not something that you can do in the admin panel. The number has to be done in PowerShell. That's it. Just running it. Then I give her the routing policy that I created. And then there's a team calling policy you also need to enable, which is to allow the calling for that user. Next, let's just check the PCN usage, Norway and international. Let's check if the gateway is up and running. It is. And let's see if the user is enabled for voice as she should be. And sorry for the short screen here, but I will share this code with you too. You can see what register pool she's in, the display name, the SIP address, and the number that she has. And if I had a wider screen, I will see those upgrade. Teams upgrade effective mode, which is set to Teams only. And Teams only is a required policy for users with direct routing. And that was the high-speed walkthrough of the calling. Teams only mode, direct routing allows you to use existing PSTN connectors, and session border controllers can be hosted by partners. And I cannot stress this, follow closely the vendor's documentation. They build good documentations, and it's there for a reason, because it's highly complex. And if you miss something, you can easily miss out on issues. Now, let's move on to meetings and more to the user experience of it. I see that I'm running a bit over, so I'm glad that you said that I have good time here. But you all know that you have the meeting life cycle, the notion of the meeting life cycle. And it's important, I believe, to tell the users how to use it. It's like you have the pre-meeting. Not only are you sending out an invitation, but you can add the documents, and you can actually chat to people and tell them to look into the documents before it actually starts. Then you have the meeting like this one. It's live, face-to-face, or many in the meeting. Share the content. You can record it. You can have transcription. And of course, Skype rooms or team rooms or mobile devices are already available. And then there's the post-meeting. If you've recorded a meeting, you can share the recording. If you have transcription in the meeting, you can actually search through that transcription. So if you're thinking, hey, Lasse said something about life cycle, you can search for life cycle in that recording, and you can get right to that point where I'm saying life cycle. I want to talk to you about guest access experience, because this is where it gets complicated when you're joining a meeting. And I'm going to simplify it a bit, because there's guest access, which is participating in real-time communications in a different tenant. And then there's federated access for a meeting, which is actually just joining the meeting, but you don't have all the goodies of participating real-time. Guest access can be given to any individual, and the individual is given access to the teams, to the channels, the files, and can search users within the teams that he has given access to. So he can search within team A, which he was invited to, but he cannot search within or work within team B, C, or D, which he has not been invited to. Federation, however, is given to a domain. It's much like Skype for Business. I want to be able to federate with Microsoft.com, which means that all my users can interact with all the users of Microsoft.com, given that they have set up the opposite direction. And federation is used for one-to-one chat and calling, and does not give access to the resources that guest users have. There's a fully good documentation on this feature under the guest experience URL in this document. Now, I talked a bit about the pre and post meeting experience. I'm gonna jump to this again and just talk a little bit about if Teams want to be with my friend again. Yep. So we all have the calendar, and if you don't have the calendar, you don't have the Exchange integration set up right. I just have to say that requires hybrid. And here's my meetings. And I think I actually created some meetings before today. No, do you notice the difference in the meeting setup here? There's a little mention here, which means that this is actually a channel meeting. So if I would go for join this meeting, I just want to go to the jump chat right here because I want to talk. This is the pre-meeting, it's not meeting just yet. I will start chatting here and say, are you ready? Question mark, right? This is in the context of the meeting. So here I can talk with the meeting. I can do my preparations. I can share. If I was owning the meeting, I could actually share the files. I can add files right here. Please start with this document, right? And say, hey, this is upload a copy. This is the agenda, for example. Make sure that users are aware of this feature because it makes it easier to prepare for a meeting. Now, the goodie about this, because this is a channel meeting, users can find this in the channel that it has been set up. And I just need to know what channel I set it up in, right? I'll find that in here. I was not supposed to click a new meeting. It is this one. Right, and it's Contoso sales knowledge sharing. It's right here what channel it is in. If I go to this channel, Contoso sales knowledge sharing, not only am I doing that that pre-work, but it's here for everyone with access to that channel to see, and they can participate, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. As opposed to a different kind of pre-experience if you have a non-channel meeting, right? If I want to chat in this one, I'll go and talk. You see, there's already an discussion here, and it says just are you ready? And this chat is not available in any channel. So prepare your users for what kind of meeting they have and where to find that chat. It can be found here in the meeting itself, or this one is actually hopefully stored in your chat experience. So all your meeting experience in channel meetings are in channels. All your non-channel meetings can be found in the chat section. Then there's a joint experience and everything, and where you can talk, discuss, and share content. I'm not going to demo that because you all know this, but the same place where you go for pre-activities is also where you go for post-activities. So if you created tasks, if you have meeting notes right here, I'm guessing this is a wiki page. No, nobody has pushed that yet, but if you click take notes, it turns into a wiki page. If it's in a channel, you can probably create a OneNote ahead and make sure that the notes are done in OneNote, which is what I prefer. But here's where you go to do the post meeting experience. Okay, meeting attendees experience. It differs whether or not you're anonymous, you're a guest, or you're federated. So for fully participation, if you're a member of the tenant, of course, you get everything you like. If you're a guest, you get anything you like within the context that you have been given permission. If you're federated or anonymous, you probably just have audio, video, and can see the sharing. Those are very different ways. So if you're a guest tenant to somebody else and they invite you to a meeting and they're a tenant, your best experience is to switch to that tenant first, then join the meeting. Then you can chat, then you can talk, then you can do all the good stuff. Right? And of course, you can do some admin controls to let anonymous people start a meeting, or you can automatically admit people, and all of these are admin controls that you can set on the tenant level. I'm not going to show the admin controls because I'm running out of time. I'm just going to say that for the licensing part, phone system is included in E5. So is the audio conferencing for dial-in meetings. But if you have E3 and other licenses, you can buy these or add-ons. The calling plan is also add-ons, and then you pre-buy buckets of numbers or calling minutes. Hosting meetings are included in all Teams licenses. F1 license can only participate in team meetings. They cannot host meetings at the time being. And Microsoft Stream is required in order to store the recordings, and it requires the licenses mentioned below. Interop is also an interesting feature for meetings. It's for all those who do not have Microsoft Teams, but have Cisco, Polycom, and other devices they want to join with. It's a separate license. BlueJeans, Paxif, and Poly at the time that I wrote this deck were the one that was certified that you can buy from. And what they basically do is when you enable it, it enables you to add a cool snippet to the meeting invite with a separate link that users can use and join from these other devices. Media quality influencing factors. I know Ståle is going to talk about devices, so I'm going to skip that one, but I want to talk about the environment that we're in. Consider, especially these days, consider where you're sitting. Are you sitting next to your spouse and your children? Can you hear them in the background? And that could probably create some nuisance and disturbance for the one who's listening to you. So be mindful of where you are. Be mindful of if there's much glass around you. Be mindful if you have audio feedback for sound bouncing off the walls, all of these kind. Think about the direction of speed. If you're not using a headset like I am, but you're using a microphone that's on the table, think about how the fan speeds and other noises can be picked up by that device and kind of really disturb the conversation. Now, in a home office, that we should only educate our users to be mindful of it. In the office scenario, I would say that an admin or the administration should really think about these things when they're building their meeting rooms to make sure that they don't have meeting rooms with just glass walls. You know what I mean? Make sure that they buy the proper equipment and have proper spacing. I'm going to show you an uninteresting meeting that I was in a couple of years back. And as you can see, I have a lot of questions here. Where are the microphones? So where's the speech coming from, right? To be honest, they're hidden behind one of the PC screens and they're not even spread out in this picture. The PCs right there, they're all working. They're hammering on the keyboard. There are fans. It's really created a lot of noise when you sit listening to it. Then the mobile phones that are on the desk there, when they are put on silent, that's fine, but they vibrate. And when you listen to people talking and you're, that is not a good experience for the other end. And then again, there's a guy here in the corner. I don't know who he even is, and that's not very confident and trusty for me. So when you're in a meeting, think that you're in a meeting, look into the camera, think about how you build your rooms for an optimum experience. Right? Devices, Ståle will talk to you all about the devices. I will though say that the network is really important. Wi-Fi or corded. Make sure that you have a solid network whenever you can. I often find that my 4G is better than my average hotel Wi-Fi. So I tend to use mobile devices in 4G when I'm traveling. But if you're in an office scenario, make sure that you don't have any blockers, bad connections, you don't have any firewalls that are altering the traffic and so on. I could go into a lot of detail right here, but I think I'm out of time. I'm just going to say this, that there are 3 segments, so to speak. There's the Office 365 segment when traffic has already gotten into the Office 365. We shouldn't worry about that. Microsoft has a low latency, high-speed network between all the data centers. The internet, we can never do anything about. The thing that we can do something about is our local networks, how we build the Wi-Fi infrastructure, how we build the wired infrastructure and bandwidth scenarios or considerations. All right, sorry for going over time, but I wanted to talk about so much.